Hello everyone, my name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. Let's actually close out Phase 5 for 2023 with Loki Season 2. Now, if you guys will remember, back in August of last year, I did review Season 1, and while I did, you know, enjoy it with some of the ideas it had and how it established this whole new section of the MCU, I did have a couple of issues in regards to the way things ended up playing out in the story, with how some things felt a little bit unfinished, and I guess how some parts were handled, and how it kind of had a rushed ending. This season, on the other hand, I am so happy to say is a vast improvement. And that actually starts with a common Marvel Disney Plus show problem that's been happening, which is that because of the way the story is structured, the main threat of the season is usually affected in a pretty negative way. And I shall demonstrate this point with a slide that I'm actually really proud of, and that's this. Usually, the villain of the season is affected in one of two ways. On the one hand, you have shows like Secret Invasion, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Moon Knight, where while the villain may do some big villainous act early on to establish themselves as the season's threat, they don't really get to do much in the middle, and they don't really achieve any big villainous feats until the finale, or even the the episode before, the second to last episode, if they're lucky. The other thing that ends up happening is that sometimes they're a twist villain and they aren't fully revealed until as the villain until the finale or the second to last episode. Like, their character might be established in an earlier episode, but otherwise they don't really have that much screen time until the end. Now, Loki Season 1 and Miss Marvel are kind of a weird case, where Loki Season 1, I absolutely get why they waited until the end to reveal He Who Remains as the main villain, because there's not really much combat-wise you can do with him, but at the same time, he's absolutely the perfect character to do a twist reveal like that. Miss Marvel, on the other hand, had two sets of villains for its debatably two halves that and they neither of them really get to do all that much. Like, you have the clandestines for episodes 3 through 5, and then damage control for episodes 1, 2, and 6. So in a way, it feels like they've never really been able to get the structure down, at least until this season. Fun fact, this is the only Marvel project that I can name off the top of my head where they did no reshoots. And I feel like because of that, they were able to have a much streamlined story. Now, the, I guess, threat or antagonist of this season actually isn't any individual character, but I'd say this is more of a race against the clock story, where because the temporal loom can't handle all of the multiverse branches that are going through it, thanks to Sylvie killing He Who Remains, it's at risk of destroying everything, so they have to find a way to increase the amount of branches it can contain. And by they, I mean, Loki, Mobius, and the TVA, and all those characters. And what I appreciate is that because there's that very consistent end goal of keeping the multiverse intact without having to worry about all the branches dying, there's no need to introduce any side content. It doesn't meander at all. It doesn't have to rush anything. This is easily the best structured story out of all of these Marvel Disney Plus shows. Hawkeye got close, and that's why that season was my favorite for a long time, but it did still have the rush problem where they revealed Kingpin as a twist reveal at the end of episode 5, and because of that, they didn't really get to do much with him. Here, nothing is wasted, everything feels like it has a point, and because of that, it is a very tight-knit story. Helping is that they introduce some fun new side characters, including the fan favorite Ki Hui Kwan as Ouroboros, who has a very infectious energy, just like Miss Marvel in both Miss Marvel and the Marvels. in the sense where he's very enthusiastic about the knowledge he has and how he's a huge also a huge fan of Victor Timely and He Who Remains. But speaking of Victor Timely, he's probably the most interesting Kang variant we've seen so far, since he's very innocent. He has this innocence to him while also being highly intelligent, and it really shows off the range that Jonathan Majors has as an actor. Like, say what you want about the guy nowadays. Personally, I'll actually be shocked if he ends up being found guilty. But it goes without saying that he's definitely a talented actor, and his range could not be more apparent than his performance as Victor Timely in this season. But even the pre-existing characters are still pretty good in their own rights. Like, Loki and Mobius still have their chemistry from the previous season, which was definitely one of the highlights. I don't know what it is about Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, but they work off of each other really well. And Miss Minutes really gets some time to shine this season. Her whole thing is that she's working with Renslayer to, set the creation of the TVA into motion, get the event started, basically give Victor Timely the TVA guidebook as a child. But at the same time, she's trying to get as close to He Who Remains as possible, and she has some very disturbing scenes. The scenes where she's alone with Victor are legitimately chilling in a way that Zola and Ultron wish they could be. Like, it goes without saying, I think she's definitely the best iteration of a villainous AI that the MCU has brought forth so far. Like, the other two were good, but damn, I felt pretty disturbed when she was on screen. At least the bits where she was supposed to be disturbing. But probably my favorite thing about this season is actually how it kind of completes the second character arc that Loki himself has. Now, technically, his first character arc was completed back in Infinity War, where he risked his life to save Thor and all that, which ended up not working, but it was a valiant effort, and it did at least show some character growth. Here, Loki's character growth comes from his decision to sacrifice his own freedom in order to keep both his friends and the multiverse safe. He's trapped in one single place for all of eternity, but as long as everyone else is safe, it's almost like he couldn't care less. And honestly, that's very admirable. It's certainly not an existence I'd want to live, but it's something that felt like it needed to happen in order to keep the multiverse from unraveling. Now, while I do love this season, there are a couple of issues I do have with it. They're very minor issues that, at least have their own little positive thing to keep me from like docking major points about them. But at the same time, they are worth bringing up. For one, Sylvie's unwillingness to listen in regards to TVA and Victor Timely, that can get a little bit frustrating. But there is a moment in episode 3 where she is kind of exposed to him, and she does have just a little bit of a change of heart where she does spare him, and they're able to bring him into the TVA so he can fix the loom. So at the very least, there is a little bit of character growth with Sylvie, but those earlier moments are a little bit frustrating. The other thing is that I will admit the first episode does a much better job of establishing Kang as a threat that we should be scared of, better than Quantumania did. Like, that's like with Love and Thunder, that's another movie that kind of soured on me a little bit over time. But the thing is, after episode 1, they don't really follow it up with much. Like, yeah, He Who Remains does show up again in episode 6, and Victor Timely is a prominent character starting at episode 3. But Kang himself isn't really focused on. But then again, I can definitely understand how the whole dilemma with the temporal loom is a more pressing concern than the guy who created the TVA starting a multiversal war with himself, in a sense. So yeah, there are a couple of issues, but they are things where I can easily excuse them, especially because they are a bit remedied by events happening within the story of the season. And overall, this might sound crazy, but I think we might have actually found a Marvel Disney Plus season that I like more than Hawkeye. If you know me, you know that's high praise. But I do believe that this season has the best structured story where it doesn't meander, nothing's rushed, and all the characters are given their own time to shine, and it completes Loki's character arc in a way that feels very satisfying, at least for the character that we've seen in this show. To the point where they even use the exact same dialogue, word for word, from the finale of Thor, which is something I did let me touch and callback. And in general, I feel like I have to give this season a perfect 5. Like, I wouldn't say it's perfect. It's still not my favorite thing in the Multiverse Saga or even in the Face so far. But it's a season that does almost nothing wrong, and the wrong it does do is incredibly minor. So yeah, if you love the first season, chances are you'll love this one too, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for my review on the second season of Loki. Yeah, I'm not about to rhyme. Don't even think about. But yeah, if you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all the generic stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and Godspeed.